Hi, my name's Mark. I'm at Great Lakes Landscape Supply Tree Yard this morning in Sand Lake, and we're looking at some Klump Royal Raindrops crabapple, about 7 to 8 foot. They're in full bloom. Royal Raindrops is a fairly new crabapple to the market, disease resistant, good purple foliage throughout the season, and this happens to be a multi-stem form instead of a tree form. So a lot of the crabapples you see here in the fields are single stem, and these are a multi-stem, just to give you a different look, to kind of soften up the corner of a house and then add some color to it. So we're looking at some Marley crabapple, fairly new to us, really unique in that they have a pink bud that opens to white. They're called a white flowering crab, but they actually start pink and then turn white as they open. Just another unique offering for Great Lakes. We don't have 100 of them, but we have, I don't know, probably about 15, 20 of them here. So something good to keep in mind on your next landscape design. At 8 to 9 foot Autumn Brilliant Serviceberry. These are some of the larger specimens that we have. We typically start around a 4-footer or 5-footer in either balled burlapped or in a 15-gallon container, and then go as high as 10 foot on the size. Great landscape tree, hardy, somewhat disease resistant. The white blooms in the spring are great, and it's got a great red-orange fall color. And again, you know, something like this, it's on the higher end of the sizes that we have. We look for as buyers, and what we're looking for in our inventory is 3 to 5 trunks, good spacing where stuff's not crossing, and especially as we get to these bigger sizes, we can hone in on the more specimen grade stuff versus more of a bush form. These are 7 to 8 foot Blue Point juniper. They're disease resistant, their transplantability as far as survivability, and just why we have Blue Points. So traditionally, over the 20-something years that we've had Great Lakes Landscape Supply, we've sold Moonglows, we've sold Skyrockets, and that's just a different blue upright juniper than what you're looking at today. This blue upright is a little kind of greenish blue, and the reason why we have them is this is kind of grown in the Midwest for our climate, and you can see that in the root ball size, the fact that it's machine dug, and then the body on the plant, you get something that's fuller and wider, and looks more like what it's going to look like in the landscape as it grows out to a 7 to 8 footer. So again, this is something that we have in stock because we believe that where it's grown, the hardiness and the transplantability is the best. So if you're looking at our availability and you want something that you don't see, I just wanted you to see these and then tell you why we have these. So this is a Berkey juniper, more of a natural form. A lot of times we think of upright junipers as a tight column. This will kind of be more natural looking and open or airy. Still gives a good screen, a little bit wider and larger of a plant. They have a bigger overall finished height and width than a lot of the upright junipers, but I just thought it was worth looking at because of the difference in the look, and it's new for us at Great Lakes Landscape Supply.
So on my left, we have Kindred Spirit Oak, and on my right is Street Spire Oak. Regal Prince has been a columnar oak that's been out for quite some time, and these are relatively new varieties of columnar oak. And the reason you want to know these is because if you look at the data and the specs on the width, it's much narrower long-term growth habit than what Regal Prince is. Regal Prince has always been referred to as a columnar oak, but in actuality, in my own experience, after 15 years, they become fairly wide at the base to the point where I had to remove the tree from where it was because it got too big. So again, Street Spire and Kindred Spirit are two narrow, more upright columnar oaks than maybe what you're used to in Regal Prince. And the ones on the left here are 3.5 inch, and the ones on the right here are a little bit lower branched, and they're 2.5 inch. These are 8-foot Taylor junipers. I believe we start with like a 10-gallon size that's probably 4 to 5 foot, all the way up to at least these 8-footers. Once in a while we'll get in some 10 and 12s, but unique to their shape and size. Like earlier we were talking about the Berkey junipers and how they're wider and more natural looking, and these are almost the opposite. They're compact, they're tight, they're upright columns. So if you're working in a real tight space and you need something that's hardy, salt tolerant, this is your tree. This is an Appalachian red redbud. There's a shortage of eastern red buds. Therefore, we made the decision to bring in more of kind of an off-brand, if you will, of another type of red bud. So the video we're doing now is when it's in bloom, so you can see the difference between the color in an Appalachian red bud, and then I'm going to walk over here to the eastern red bud that's more purple. So if you're looking at our availability, you know you want a red bud, you don't see the size that you want in an eastern red bud, take a look at Appalachian red. If you like the fall or the flower color, the rest of the tree is relatively the same. So just giving you some options for your next landscape design. So we're looking at Concolor Fir, and this is one of my favorite evergreens for the color and the texture and the smell. In the zip code we're in today in the evergreen world, we're pretty short on spruce and pine in larger sizes. And when you look at our availability, this is actually something we still have available in 5, 6s up to about 9 to 10s. There's a few left, but you know, some things to maybe stay away from: planting them in heavy soil, a heavy clay. They're not great at adjusting to that habit. But as far as a moist, well-drained environment's great. And again, the color I think is superior in the texture and the smell. Looking at more red buds today. Another relatively new tree for Great Lakes, not necessarily to the landscape green industry, but white bud multi-stem. So a lot of your same characteristics as far as bark and leaf as you get in a red bud, but these happen to have a white flower. So if you got a great spot for a red bud, but you're looking for something with white instead of purple or red, this might be an option for you on your next landscape design. Big dwarf burning bush, bald and burlapped at Great Lakes Landscape Supply. Why are we looking at these today? I want to just kind of let you in on an idea here at Great Lakes, and it's about being different than our competition. And one way that we're different than our competition is we have things in sizes, plants in sizes, trees in sizes that you don't see at every landscape supply yard. And I believe big burning bush like this is one of them. And you say, well, why do we want to have big burning bush? And yesterday I was with a contractor that keys in on selling a lot of large truck tree spaded trees. So instead of planting 7 and 8 footers or 6 footers for his customers, he's focused on selling them a 15-foot spruce tree or an 8-inch caliper shade or ornamental. And in my head, a 5 to 6 foot burning bush goes hand in hand with those larger trees on those projects where you want bigger, more established items. So when you're looking through our availability and you're at our yard and you're looking around, just notice some of these things that are probably different than what you see and just keep them in mind. Been on that theme of, what does Great Lakes have that you don't find at every landscape supply yard? And we walked up on these lilacs. They're just a common purple lilac. We call them a 5 to 6 foot. You're probably used to seeing these in a 3 gallon, a 5 gallon, maybe even a 7 that's 3 to 4 feet tall. But these are northern grown wire basket, 5 to 6 foot. So on those projects where you want something bigger and the budget isn't necessarily the concern, it's the look, here's another option for you. And just to take that a step further, when you look at our availability, there's days where I want to call Great Lakes Landscape Supply the home of the lilac. And again, yet why are we doing that? Well, it's pretty common to see the 3s and the 5s, but as far as a large specimen planting and or a hedge that's well-known, disease-resistant, hardy, good transplant plant, we do these bald and burlap, but we also do them in big containers. We'll do them in 10s and 15s, and you're looking through our availability. I think that's something that can set you apart as a landscape contractor, designer, and it sets us apart as a supply yard. Fox Valley River Birch. These are 5 to 6 foot and probably as wide as they are tall. Probably an option for a wet area that you want a river birch look, or something that has a lot of interest in the winter with the bark, the exfoliating bark, but you can't have a plant that gets too big. So the caution on these is they are small, they are short. So when you're ordering a dwarf, unlike a burning bush dwarf, I consider these to be a true dwarf when you compare the root ball size, the caliper of the trunks, in this that's only 5 to 6 foot tall in a regular heritage or just a species river birch, you're probably going to have something that's close to 12 to 14 foot tall. And with the dwarf here, you got the same root ball, the same mass at the bases, but you're only 5 to 6 feet tall. Minnesota strain redbud or Michigan grown redbud is what we're looking at here. And the reason why I wanted to talk about it is when you look at our availability, you'll notice when you're searching redbuds, we're a little short on some of the sizes in eastern redbud again. And we've always had what we call Minnesota strain, which is a liner or seed source from Minnesota, and then other redbuds that are in Michigan. But because of the shortage of redbuds the last several years that continues this year and beyond, we've added a lot more of these redbuds to our availability in our stock list. And typically they're going to be a little heavier caliper for the height that they are. It's possible that they're a little bit hardier because they are Michigan grown, but mostly today just talking about it so that you're aware that they're on the availability. They're a little heavier plant, and with that comes a little bit higher price tag. So while we're still talking about redbuds, if you pan here to the right, there's some weeping redbuds. If you're familiar with lavender twist, it's a green leaf and then the same redbud flower. There's one called Ruby Falls that's a purple leaf, kind of like a forest pansy or Merlot redbud, but it's a weeper that's got a purple leaf. And we've got a pretty good selection of these too. So again, if you want the redbud bark, leaf, flower, but you're struggling with a size that you're looking for, this might be another option for you to get a lot of what you want in a redbud. Dogwoods, you can see a bunch of them behind me. We're in kind of what we call dogwood trail here at the tree yard. We're kind of in the woods. We've left the trees, the big trees here, so we get a good canopy to keep shade on these in the summer when the sun's intense and it's hot. It sure makes a difference come late summer and fall when you're planting these as to what they look like. Again, they hold their color better and they don't look tired. But mostly what I wanted to show you was the multi-stem form, and on that theme of being a little short on dogwoods and redbuds this year, we've tried to inventory more multi-stem form. So when you're looking at availability and you really wanted that 2 or 2.5 inch tree form Cornus Florida and we're out or we don't have very many, look for some of these clumps in 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, and there might even be a few that are 9 and 10 foot on there yet. Pink dogwood, another item that we're short on in 2025 as far as what we perceive demand to be and what our availability is. So we've gotten a little creative with containers. We've got a little creative with additional varieties of dogwood, whether it be Scarlet Fire and Acusa. Probably see a few more Cherokee Brave and Cherokee Chief on our availability than we've had in the past, and that's an attempt to get our numbers up as high as possible in a dogwood, whether it's Cornus Florida or Cornus Coosa, and just try to have stock available. So some of the differences in different cultivars have to do with the flower colors and how long they bloom and whether or not they fade or not. So just when you're looking at our availability, just know that there's a lot more than just Cornus Florida rubra and then like a Cherokee Princess. More dogwoods. These are one of my favorite dogwoods, and I wouldn't have said that a few years ago, but it's called Little Poncho. It's a Coosa dogwood, and I'm excited because we have some of the biggest ones that we've ever had at Great Lakes Landscape Supply here in 2025. I really want to come back here and take some more pictures of these when they bloom. We're probably 2 or 3 weeks away from being in full bloom. But again, these are Little Poncho. It's a dwarf Coosa. These are already 5, 6, 6, 7 feet tall. And as far as a true dwarf in a tree, I don't know that you could find a more true dwarf in a tree. So just something to keep in mind when you're working on a project, and that dogwood is a great choice, but you just don't want something to get so big. 2-inch Cumulus serviceberry, or more of a columnar serviceberry, is what we're looking at here behind me. Autumn Brilliance serviceberry is kind of the staple. It's very hard to grow in a tree form because it doesn't really want to be a tree. It wants to be a multi-stem tree or a shrub. Different when it comes to Cumulus to Robin Hill. You can see the structure in the tree. Still get the same bloom color, still the same time of year, still the same hardiness, but you get a nice straight trunk with a well-developed head that doesn't look like it doesn't want to be a tree. Jack pear, dwarf pear. So if you like pear trees for survivability, transplant, white flower in the spring, red purple fall color, but you don't like how big they get or the space that you're working in doesn't allow for that, Jack pear is a really good dwarf. I don't have the exact sizes on the specs, but it's probably less than half the size of, like, say, a Cleveland Select pear. So columnar hornbeam, 3-inch caliper, low branch. Got a bunch of them here, got 2.5 inch over there. Great tree, it's been short for several years. We've got a really good inventory in 2025. Take a look at our 25-gallon containers as well that we grew in West Olive. A lot of those are 1.75 to 2 inch and are really going to be coming on nice here, this coming summer and fall.